Ladies and gentlemen, buongiorno. Today, I want to share with you a celebration because 10 years ago started the reason why I'm here today. I come from Tuscany, a place, a land of inventors, and I believe to belong to the category of the inventors. And 10 years ago, think about where you were 10 years ago, what the Italy was. 10 years ago was a country that was going to lose in the change of paradigm of the industry. And I was belonging to the category of the small enterprises working in the field of the robotic industry. That was going to change because the manufacturing was going to move elsewhere, especially for the footwear industry where myself and my brother used to work. So we had to reinvent ourselves. So our driver of change was a matter of survive. In Buti, which is a very nice country village in Tuscany, close to Pisa, in the morning of July the 20th, 2008, I was holding an hammer on my hands and willing to break the shell made of sand, dust, magnesium oxide and binder that my brother and I, my elder brother and I, built along 2 weeks of hard work. This was the outcome of a painful path that lasted over 4 years. And my brother was extremely anxious, like me, to see what might be the outcome of our 3D printed object made out of sand and binder. So I hammered this shell and this structure collapsed, unveiling the outcome. And the outcome was the most awful 3D printed prototype we might expect. You see the face of my brother, quite puzzled about the outcome. I was delusional, frustrated, but at the end, the structure was standing. I said, Riccardo, no way to go to an investor to sell a 3D printer of conglomerate structure with an outcome like that. He said, what's wrong, Enrico? This is very wild and out of time. So I was quite happy about that. And he was right, absolutely right. So what is special of this structure is the first 3D printed structure ever. It's a very small structure, it's just a couple of meters, and is made of a mix of magnesium oxide and sand and hydrochloric acid. We used to make the binders on our own. What this structure was supposed to mean? While we were manufacturing the printer, which is a tool, the topic was, what is truly iconic that we might print as a first object ever? I long debated with my father, who passed away a few years ago, about what might be printed. And because he was a very seasoned man, they said, Enrico, why don't you print the tempietto of San Pietro in Montorio? Which for me was something completely unknown. What is the tempietto of San Pietro in Montorio? It was a scandal for me. Hey, Enrico, you are an engineer. You are willing to become an architect somehow. And you don't know what is the tempietto by Donato Bramante, a famous architect of Renaissance. I said, Daddy, no, I don't know. So I went on internet and I downloaded from internet the tempietto. Who knows this iconic domed structure? I didn't know that. This is the iconic dome of the Renaissance that inspired all the domes in the world. Capitol Hill, St. Paul Cathedral. All these domes come from this iconic concept home, which is quite small but a full-scale building. At that time, the idea was to print something that might mimic somehow our bones and our skeletons, because the skeletons are very topologically optimized building structure by our morphogenesis. Was a quite undistinguished concept. And in London, Andrea Morgante, which is an architect from Milan, where we are, understood the concept and developed, being inspired by a skeleton of an amoeba, which is the radiolaria. And this is the translation of the tempietto into something conceptual, which is the radiolaria structure, which is much smoother than the rough structure that we built. That's why, after having dropped the hammer, we took a grinding machine to smooth the awful structure that we did before, and this is the final outcome. This is the building structure that we spread on the media, on the internet, on the zine and the magazine. That has been the message that we sent to the very top level of the chain of architecture and industry of construction, that was really conservative and absolutely not aware about what the digital construction is. That has been the beginning of the change of mindset of the idea of design building structure. The idea was not to print sculpture or, let's say, free-form buildings without a sense. The idea was to print buildings in 3D in a fast way, in a cheap way, and printing beautiful building structure. What you see on your right is a small 3D printer that we actually produce in Pisa. Is a very simple machine, which process I will show you in the next slide. And the idea is to print amazing building structure in one go, from the foundation up to the roof, all included. This is the vision. How it works? It's a process extremely simple. You spread the layers of aggregates, aggregates whatever they are. Wherever you are, you can collect the local soil and span in layers and freeze part of the layers according to a software that materialize layer by layer with a bonding agent and materialize the building structure. At that time, the purpose was to showcase to investor the technology and the process, so we had to start from scratch. In 2008, nobody used to talk about blue economy or third industrial revolution. Everything was done in the shade of a small warehouse. We built I developed personally the 3D printer, the software, the material. The purpose was to print something, leaving aside any details, go straight to the solution. Despite this might means that a civil engineer like me should become a robotic engineer, a chemical engineer, an architect, everything. Whatever it is, let's go straight to the bottom in order to inspire our investors. And the idea that was the driver was not a business at the time, and partially is not still. The idea was to celebrate the incredible potential of 3D printing. Because 3D printing, because of doesn't have any constraint except the strength of the material to materialize any kind of shape. And if you have the possibility to realize any shape, you can also create beautiful shapes. So the real driver was to give to everybody the chance to live in beautiful homes. Because living in a beautiful place enhances self-improvement and is good for the soul. So one day, this kind of architecture that might seem very luxury will be accessible to anyone. And along this process, I started to form into my mind what this generic sense of beauty I had at the beginning. Beauty, in our perception, and of course in my opinion, is the perception of an ordered process of development of an organism or of a thing, or vice versa, might hide an ordered process of demolition of a shape. And we perceive this like beautiful because it's the product of an ordered process of demolition or growth. And behind a growth or a demolition, there is a shaping that hides an algorithm behind. So beauty, as a provocation, might be is computation. Computation, by 3D printing, you can materialize any shape, and of course with math, the ideal instruments of 3D printing is computational design. And because we have a high sense of beauty coupled to math, it's possible to materialize any kind of shape, no limits to the imagination, no limits to the use of fractals, Voronoi, ranging mathematics, Fibonacci series, everything that belongs to our concept of harmony. On the right you see something that we printed in 3D that is a mock-up of a facade. Of course, architects are on the top of this chain that must produce value. And I came here to Milan to pitch our project, and I was lost in the endless opportunities of business that you can do out of 3D printing at a large scale. This might seem a bit a provocation, but basically, if you have a printer, you need the material, which are completely different business model. And if you have the printer and if you have the material, you have to run the printer and the material doing something. Printing large-scale building blocks with prefabrication. You can also think about printing big maritime objects. You can print sculpture. There are endless applications in 3D printing. And in fact, despite we were burning money rather than earning, we touched initially the boundaries of art, because of course this new invention spread through artists and designers first, and then through artists rather than builders, which were our real goal. We made a lot of projects. I will mention just one that has been very successful about printing homes on the moon, because if we are enabled to use local soil, why not using also moon soil? This is a project we did with Fostering Partners and Scuola Sant'Anna di Pisa and Alta Space in Pisa. And of course, we attempted to print homes, despite the technology was not mature, despite the material strength was not great, but I was personally oppressed or obsessioned by the intention to affirm a priority in printing buildings in 3D. There are a couple of homes that we printed in 2008. One of those has been exposed to the museum, the Triennale Museum here in Milan. It passed a bit under silent, but that is the first 3D printed home ever. And within the several attempts of making mock-ups and attempts to make freeform homes, one of those images has been really disruptive for the booming of 3D printing buildings. We posted on the web this image that suddenly led the construction industry to understand that something was moving in the field. And in fact, after 3 years, in China, a company called Winsun, inspired by that image, printed the first, let's say, 3D printed homes, 10 homes. 10 homes using not the technique that I invented by the deposition of a bed of material, but extruding a paste of mortar. So it's a sort of plotter rather than a printer. Invented by this guy, Enrico, a professor at the Southern California University from Terangere, because he's Persian, and he invented the contour crafting. Today, that kind of machinery, which, let's say, architectural suggestion was not appreciated by the architects, because our provocation was the one that started. And today, everybody is willing to print homes in 3D. There is the boom of companies that are pursuing, each one for his piece of interest, 3D printing. So there are not less than 5 main players of cement developing 3D printable materials. There are very big infrastructural companies and contractors who are investing in 3D printing. And of course, there are companies that are manufacturers of 3D printers. So the business model that I imagined of the 12 Apostles business model is going to develop. I created a market, and of course I created a competition, so it's might be a suicide, but again, the driver personally was to affirm a priority and share with mankind the way to achieve beauty. And for this journey, last month at the ATH Zurich have been awarded by the committee of the university as a pioneer in this field, together the other gentleman I introduced you before, Professor Enrico and Today there are 2 main 3D printing technology. The one that I mentioned before, which is contour crafting, generated so far $1 billion investment. About the particle-based method, which is the one which I invented, the level of investment is pretty low because it's a more complex technology, but ensure the freedom of creation. On the right, you see the 3D printed bridge that we did in Madrid, together a company called Acciona, that believed in our process. Is a tribute to Gaudí. And what we do today in Tuscany, in the same warehouse where we began at the beginning of my speech. Sometime when you make an invention, you discover another land. We're supposed to go to India, and we found America, and our America is a particular application of 3D printing for application into maritime environment for coastal restoration, fishery population, and protecting the environment, fighting the global warming or trying to contribute to save the world. So this is probably the best thing I ever did in life, which has been printing artificial reefs. And this is a very promising project because Prince Albert Foundation sponsored the installation of modules in Monte Carlo, and now at least 4 or 5 new pilot projects are going to be developed elsewhere in the world, in Mozambique, in Philippines, and also elsewhere. So I'm supposed to be the man who prints houses, and I became the man who prints houses for fish, which is pretty fine as well. and I'm very happy. And thanks for your time, and enjoy the rest of the show. Thank you.